Senator Huelskamp has served the citizens of Southwest Kansas here in the state legislature for 13 years. He's received numerous state and national recognitions for his work on behalf of taxpayers and is the leading candidate for Congress in the 1st District of Kansas. And one of the things I like best about him, he's here.
Hello everyone, and thank you for being here. As was indicated, my name is Tim Huelskamp, and I am a proud co-sponsor of the Kansas Sovereignty Resolution. I'm also a candidate for Congress in the big 1st District, but again, thank you for being here, and thank you for caring enough about your country and your Constitution to be here today to defend and protect both. Before I begin, I want to mention I just came across the street from the legislature, and just a note where the governor and the rest of the liberals are looking again to try to raise your taxes to cover their shortcomings. Last few years they spent our tax dollars like the good times would never end, and just a little note, the good times have ended. And now they need to hear from you. You need to send a very simple message to your senator and your representative. Raise my taxes, lose my vote. We're all here today because we know Washington, D.C. has ceased to respect that portion of the Constitution, the 10th Amendment, and we're looking to do two things. Obviously, to educate the voters. More importantly, we want to send them a message. What we're seeing in Washington today is clearly a level of overreach that has crossed into the sovereignty of this great state of Kansas, and I believe it's time for a wake-up call. On this subject, Governor Rick Perry offered what I think is a perfect illustration of what has happened far too long in this country. We've obviously all heard the old adage of boiling a frog, and the way not to do it is you turn up the heat really quickly, and the frog feels that and jumps out of the water, and that's the end of it. But instead, the proper way to boil a frog is to put him in the water and slowly, very slowly, turn up the temperature. He gets used to it, and before you know it, that frog is toast. And I believe that's what's been happening in Washington for decades, for generations, for years. To turn up the heat so slowly that the people of this country don't recognize and realize they're stealing our liberties. But since the last election, they've been turning up the heat so fast that people, millions of people just like us, are beginning to take notice. The current health care bill in Congress has been mentioned. The cap and tax are great, perfect illustrations of this occurring this year. Another illustration of something that I think we have beat for now, and that's something called card check, which would threaten our status as a right-to-work state. The Constitution clearly gives the state of Kansas the right and the authority to make that determination of whether or not we want to be a right-to-work state. And Washington has no business mandating that type of requirement. When we see this type of overreach occurring in Washington, we tend to return to, I think, our basic principles as a nation. We have to remind people that the federal government is a creation of the states, not the other way around. The states predate the federal government. And it is our constitutional right to govern our state how we see fit without undue interference from the powers in Washington. My friends, this resolution is about one thing. It's about one thing: Kansas. Kansas is perfectly capable of handling Kansas problems. In fact, even though we see states like California teetering on the brink of bankruptcy, Kansas will continue to find solutions, Kansas solutions to Kansas challenges. We don't need a paper-pushing bureaucrat on Pennsylvania Avenue to tell us how to solve our problems. We certainly don't need an unelected judge, say from Massachusetts, to tell us. We certainly don't need a speaker from San Francisco to tell us. Certainly, we don't need a community organizer from Chicago. This is what the resolution is all about. One word: Kansas. Again, I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you We're caring enough about our state and our country, and that's the word, our state, our country, to get involved. I want to challenge you, encourage you to reach out to others, to your friends, your family, your coworkers, those in your church, and enlist them in the effort. The stakes are too high for us to fail. They're too high for us to fail, so we must give it everything we got. And as long as I've got a voice, whether it's here in Kansas or whether the voters send me to Washington, you can count on me to give it everything I've got. Thank you.